When I was 9 months pregnant, I received an email with an electronic bank statement. My husband, Daniel Hart, had been transferring $30,000 to the same woman every month without fail. The first payment was dated back 2 years, right around the time we lost our first child. Then, as if on cue, my phone chimed with a messenger notification. From her. It was a friend request, along with a note that read, "The happy woman who gets $30,000 in pocket money every month." I felt an eerie calm wash over me, almost unnatural. As I stroked my belly, I clicked accept. Immediately, a message popped up. "Did you get the bank statement?" Ignoring it, I went straight to her account profile. The earliest post was from 2 years ago, on April 21st. In the photo, she leaned gently on a man's shoulder, her hand resting on him, showcasing a massive diamond ring. The caption read, "Thank you for the birthday gift, love." Although only the man's back was visible, I recognized him instantly. It was Daniel, my husband. He was wearing the shirt Lad bought him during a business trip, the one with intricate embroidery on the collar. 2 years ago, April 21st, was the day lost our first child. While I lay in the cold, sterile operating room, undergoing ADC procedure, my on a business trip husband was celebrating another woman's birthday. The irony was almost suffocating. My hands trembled as I scrolled further through her posts. Since that day, she had been flaunting all kinds of luxury items, each one identical to things I owned, except for one, a jasmine-scented perfume. Then I saw her most recent post pinned at the top. It was an ultrasound image. She was pregnant. I dropped my phone, my heart pounding, and frantically searched through the dirty laundry basket. I found the shirt Daniel had worn the night before. Lifting it to my nose, the unmistakable scent of jasmine hit me. I never wear perfume. When I didn't respond to the message, the person on the other end grew impatient. My phone buzzed again and again as photos and videos came flooding in. Clutching my belly, I sank onto the couch, struggling to breathe. I forced myself to look at the undeniable evidence of Daniel's betrayal. The woman in the photos was young and beautiful, her ponytail bouncing with life. There were pictures of her and Daniel. He was rowing on a lake, playing in the snow, and tucking a maple leaf into her hair. It was as though each season, spring, summer, fall, and winter, was captured in their little love story. Taking a deep breath, I shakily opened one of the videos. In it, Daniel stood by the ocean, tenderly calling her my Karina. She softly asked, "Do you love me?" This was my husband of 7 years, the father of the baby growing inside me, replying with a warmth I hadn't seen in years. "I'll always love you, Kara." I replayed the video over and over, tears streaming down my face. As dusk fell, the room around me grew dim. Daniel finally came home. His voice was gentle as he lightly scolded me. "Olivia, why didn't you turn on the lights? It's so dark. What if you fall?" He flipped the light switch and the room lit up. I quickly covered my tear-streaked face as he knelt in front of me and took my hand. "Why are you crying? Who made my precious wife and our little one so sad?" he asked, his voice soft as he kissed my belly. As he leaned closer, I smelled the same sweet jasmine fragrance. Struggling to keep calm, I asked, "Where were you?" "I was working late at the office." "What's wrong, honey?" Daniel replied casually, as though nothing was out of the ordinary. "You're lying, Daniel. You were with Kara. She had a craving for those famous dumplings from the east side of the city, and since there was no delivery, you drove over an hour from the west side to get them for her. She even live-streamed the whole thing." Feigning nonchalance, I smiled, gently squeezing his hand. "Honey, I suddenly have a craving for those dumplings from the east side, too," I said, resting my hands on my belly. As if sensing my pain, the baby kicked hard. "Can you get some for me?" Annoyance flickered across Daniel's face as he pulled his hand away, frustration creeping into his expression. "Those dumplings aren't anything special. Besides, you're pretty far along. You should watch what you eat." Standing up, he added, "For the sake of our son, just bear with it a little longer, okay?" Without waiting for a response, he muttered, "I'm going to take a shower. I am exhausted." "Why don't you call Mom and ask her to make you something?" The bathroom door clicked shut. Swallowing my sobs, I gently stroked my belly and whispered, "Oh, sweetheart, you and I are about to fight a tough battle together." Daniel's phone blinked on the dining table. As usual, he never even tried to hide his infidelity in front of me. Did he really think I was that naive? The sound of water running in the bathroom echoed through the house. With a sigh, I struggled with my pregnant belly and slowly stood up. Hoping for a quick solution, I tried all the obvious passwords from our wedding anniversary and our birthdays, but none of them worked. My hands trembled as I entered the date from Kara's ultrasound report. Success. Biting my lip in frustration, I sneered as I opened the messaging app's storage. Sure enough, Kara's profile picture was there. Their avatars matched. He said, "If love lasts forever," and she replied, "Does it matter if we're together every day?" I clicked into the chat and was greeted by a flood of "Darling, I miss you and baby, when will I see you again?" Determined not to let my emotions take over, I activated the screen recording feature. Next, I opened Daniel's shopping app. To my dismay, his order history was filled with pregnancy supplements, skincare products, and makeup. They were all sent to the same address. Every delivery was made to Kara. With one hand resting on my restless baby, I took screenshots with the other. I sent the videos and screenshots to myself, then carefully deleted the evidence. Satisfied that everything was in order, I placed the phone back exactly where I'd found it. Waddling back to the bedroom, I lay down on my side. The weight of betrayal settled over me as my heart felt like it had a hole ripped through it, and I couldn't stop shivering from the cold weight of betrayal. After 7 years of marriage, I had been reduced to a cruel joke. Chapter 2. When Daniel came out of the shower, his phone rang. From my vantage point, through the crack in the door, I saw his face soften as he answered the call. Glancing toward the bedroom, he carefully stepped out onto the balcony, closing the door behind him. Curiosity gnawing at me, I forced myself up and stood by the door, watching him. I couldn't make out the words, but his expression was tender, with a slight smile. At some point, whoever was on the other end must have said something that made him frown in discomfort. But soon enough, he caved, agreeing with a subtle smile. The chill in my chest deepened. Slowly, I turned and dragged myself back to bed, feeling as if the air had been sucked out of the room. Even breathing felt like a burden. A few minutes later, I heard Daniel tiptoe back inside. One of his hands rested on my belly while the other gently brushed the hair from my forehead. His voice was soft as he whispered, "Baby, there's an urgent project at work. I need to go in." I turned my head and stared deeply into his eyes. My last shred of hope flickered weakly as I asked, "I don't feel well. Could you stay?" For a brief moment, I thought that if he chose to stay with me instead of running to her, I could try to forgive him. But then I remembered, once the kite string snaps, it can never be fixed. As expected, Daniel gave me a troubled smile, trying to reassure me. "Sweetheart, this project is essential for the company. Miss it. I'll call Mom to come over and stay with you, okay?" A wave of nausea washed over me, goosebumps prickling my skin. Still, I managed to force out the words, "Drive safely." I lay there in silence, watching him get dressed and leave. Slowly, I got up, holding my belly, and made my way downstairs to hail a taxi. "Maplewood Estates," I told the driver. Chapter 2. He sped through the streets, and just as we arrived, I saw Daniel's car pull in. My stomach clenched as I asked the driver to park behind a tree. From the back seat, I watched as Kara fluttered into Daniel's arms like a butterfly. He caught her gently, placing a hand on her flat stomach. His face softened with a look of tender reproach, and he playfully tapped her nose. Cradling my belly with one hand, I took out my phone and switched to video mode. With trembling fingers, I watched through the screen as Daniel lifted Kara into the passenger seat and carefully buckled her seatbelt. My eyes burned, but I blinked back the tears. "Driver, follow that car," I said. The car climbed onto the overpass, neon lights flashing by outside the window. In a daze, my nails dug into the window frame until they split, the sharp pain snapping me back to reality. I put my bleeding fingers into my mouth and bit down hard. As the car wove through the city streets, I repeated to myself repeatedly, "Olivia, endure it. The pain will pass." When we arrived at Riverside General Hospital, I scanned the QR code to pay the driver. As I stepped out of the car, the usually quiet driver turned to me and said, with unexpected kindness, "Miss, take care of yourself. For the baby's sake, don't hurt yourself." Since discovering Daniel's affair, I hadn't told a soul. The secret felt like poison, slowly eating away at me from the inside. The kindness of a stranger felt like a fresh breath of air, pulling me back from the abyss. I gently closed the car door, offering him a small smile. "Don't worry, sir. No one can hurt me anymore, because I'm ready to throw the trash where it belongs." I hid behind a pillar, watching Daniel. He had been too busy with work to attend a single prenatal checkup with me during my entire pregnancy. Yet here he was, running around the hospital, registering, picking up medication, and gently helping another woman in and out like the perfect husband. At that moment, I realized it wasn't that he was too busy. He didn't want to make an effort for the wife he'd been married to for 7 years. In the bustling hospital lobby, Daniel held the woman close, reminding her, "The doctor said you should eat less tonight and try to stay active. In the early stages of pregnancy, digestion can be tricky, so let us follow the advice this time, okay?" "Ah, fine, I got it," she replied, pouting playfully. "But it's your fault. You bought way too many dumplings." All right, I'll take the blame," he said with a smile. "It's my fault. For making my sweetheart eat too much, okay? That's better." She smirked. "Fine, I'll forgive you this time." As I watched them, they bantered like a real couple, close and inseparable, while I stood under the hospital's harsh fluorescent lights, feeling like an intruder in my own life. I was invisible to them. With a heavy heart, I held my belly and slowly shuffled out of the hospital. Outside, the scene was no less cruel. The rain had started. The cold autumn wind blew against me, and the rain felt like it was trying to drown the world in its chill. Through the mist, I watched as Daniel draped his coat over her, shielding her from the rain, and gently helping her into the front passenger seat. The woman smiled up at him, grabbing his tie and pulling him in for a kiss. My husband cupped her face and kissed her deeply right there in the rain. When they finally pulled apart, he tapped her nose playfully and she tugged on his tie again, biting his lip hard. To my surprise, instead of getting upset, he just smiled like he was thrilled. Then, he got into the car. As the car was about to pull away, the woman rolled down the window, locking eyes with me. She gave me a smug, taunting look and said, "Olivia, you've lost." I smiled and shook my head. A strange calm washed over me. "It's okay, Olivia." Then, I whispered to myself, "He's just a man, nothing more." As the car turned the corner, I waved. "Daniel, I don't want you anymore. You're hers." In that decisive moment, standing under the hospital awning, I calmly sent all the evidence I had gathered to my mentor, a well-known divorce lawyer. I was going to secure the best future for my child, no matter what. By the time I finished, the rain had already soaked the hem of my dress. Oddly enough, I barely noticed. Just as I put my phone away, it rang. It was Mom. "Olivia, I made some soup for you and brought it to the house. Where are you and Danny? Why aren't you home?" Her voice was filled with warmth and concern. Before I could respond, she continued, "Oh, that Danny. You're this far along, and he is still taking you out. You really need to be careful right now." Hearing my mom's voice felt like a blow, like opening a floodgate I had been trying so hard to keep closed. All the pain I had been holding in grew into an overwhelming weight, pressing down on my chest. I bit down hard on my lip, fighting back the sob rising in my throat. The pain of suppressing it sent a shiver through my entire body. "Mom, don't worry," I said, forcing a smile even though she couldn't see me. "We're just out having dinner." I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice steady. "Oh, we're being careful. Danny's right here with me." I had to keep it together. I couldn't let my mom hear me cry. I wouldn't. "It's raining, Mom. Drive home safely, okay? Text me when you get there." I hung up quickly before my voice could betray me. Once the call ended, I took a deep breath and tried to hold everything in, but no matter how hard I tried, the tears finally spilled over. I cried quietly, my body trembling under the weight of it all. There I stood, a heavily pregnant woman, belly aching, surrounded by strangers coming and going from the hospital. And in that cold, indifferent world, I cried until I had no more tears left in me. You might also like, Daniel didn't come home that night. Instead, he only sent a text. "Hey Olivia, I'm working late tonight and crashing into the office. It's getting cold and rainy, so don't forget to close the window before bed. Love you always, your husband." I read the message without feeling anything. In the past, I would have worried, replied, or waited for Daniel. Now, I didn't even bother to respond. I used to think I was the happiest woman in the world because I had the best husband. But reality hit me hard. It had all been a ridiculous facade. People's hearts are hidden behind their ribs and their lies are scribbled on paper. A few days later, I received the divorce papers my lawyer had drafted. I printed them out, signed my name, and started packing up my things to move back to my mom's place. Just as I was getting ready to leave, my phone rang with an unknown number. It was Kara. We met at a cafe downstairs. Kara arrived with an air of confidence, sitting across from me with a smug smile, a supermarket shopping bag by her side. 3 months pregnant and balancing on thin high heels, she looked at me as if she had already won. "I thought you wouldn't come," she said, a smug lilt in her voice. "After all, you never replied to my messages." I smiled calmly. My heart was steady, not a flicker of emotion breaking through. "Why wouldn't I come? I haven't done anything shameful that I need to hide." I leaned back, still smiling. "Besides, Daniel and I are legally married, so I have nothing to hide. Unlike some people who, no matter how hard they try, will always be the hidden third. You," she snapped, but I cut her off again. "Oh, and thank you, by the way," I said, my voice steady, "for sending me all the evidence of your little affair with Daniel. Collecting all that would been much harder on my own." I smiled, this time more dismissively. "So, this coffee's on me." I placed some cash under my cup, stood up slowly, and rested my hand on my belly. "What do you mean by that?" she asked through clenched teeth as she grabbed my arm. "It means I don't want him anymore," I replied, pulling my arm free. "If you want him, he's all yours." Her eyes narrowed and she threw my arm aside angrily. "What game are you playing now? Don't think I'm buying this for a second." The force of her shove sent me stumbling backward and I fell to the floor. At that moment, it felt like a knife had ripped through my belly. Pain shot through me and I felt my body convulsed. Blood poured from between my legs and I screamed in terror, "Save my baby." I barely registered Kara fleeing in panic. Forcing myself to stay calm, I asked the cafe staff to call an ambulance. By the time they lifted me into the ambulance, my dress was drenched in blood. As my consciousness began to slip away, I heard a nurse asking for my phone password. I unlocked it for her, and they called my emergency contact, my husband, 6 times. Finally, he picked up on the last call. "Olivia, there's an emergency at work," Daniel's sharp and impatient voice said. "We're in the middle of a critical meeting. I'll call you later, okay? Be good." The line went dead, but I could hear Kara's voice clearly in the background. "Back." I turned away from the nurse's pitiful eyes and wiped the blood from my hands with my dress. My fingers shook as I took the phone and dialed my mom. I had to sound calm. "Mom, I'm going into labor." I swallowed hard, fighting through the pain. My mom replied, "Don't panic, okay? Just listen. Go to my place, grab my ID and the hospital bag, and take a cab to Riverside General. Whatever the doctors tell you to do, do it." "I'm fine, Mom, really. Don't worry about me," I reassured her before quickly hanging up. Right then, the contractions hit me like a tidal wave and I screamed. Cold sweat poured down my face, my whole body shaking uncontrollably. As I drifted in and out of consciousness, I used the last bit of strength I had to grab the doctor's hand. "Please, save my baby," I gasped. I couldn't lose my baby. Not again. My consciousness drifted in and out. In brief moments of awareness, I could hear my mother sobbing. At other times, it was the doctors, urgently calling for more blood. A cold sensation brushed across my abdomen, and beneath the sterile surgical lights, I saw flashes of my past. I remembered a simpler time. Back then, Daniel and I had just graduated from college. We were broke, living in the cheapest basement we could find. Despite the hardships, we were happy. To save money, no matter how late we got home from work, we'd cook meals in the narrow hallway. Even a simple bowl of noodles made us feel content. One memory stood out. It was lingering in front of a shop window, staring at a dress. Daniel went without breakfast for 2 months to buy it for me. When he gave it to me, I was furious. "If you keep skipping meals, you're going to destroy your stomach. What were you thinking?" I yelled. "And what do I even need for such an expensive dress?" But he held me close and said with all the sincerity in the world, "My wife deserves the best things in life. I'll work hard to make sure you have everything you want." Time passed, and later, his career took off. He began showering me with luxury goods, but none of those things ever meant as much as that dress. The man who once promised me everything found another woman. As these memories surfaced, even in my half-conscious state, the sadness consumed me. Tears rolled down my face. But then something loud broke through the haze. I heard my baby's first cry. Instantly, my heart swelled, both aching and filled with joy. With whatever strength I had left, I fought to open my eyes, my voice trembling as I asked, "Is my baby okay?" "Don't worry, Mrs. Hart. You've got a healthy little princess," the doctor reassured me. At that moment, I finally let myself relax. I closed my eyes, feeling at peace. The next time I woke up, the smell of disinfectant lingered in the air as I struggled out of the darkness. When I finally opened my eyes, the first thing I saw was Mom's tear-filled, bloodshot eyes. She didn't say a word, but her tears fell like rain. "My poor Olivia, you've been through so much," she said softly, her voice cracking. Anxiety crept in as I touched my now flat belly and looked at her. But Mom quickly soothed my worries. "Your baby is right here," she said, cradling a tiny, peaceful angel in her arms. "You two were so lucky. God is watching over you." As if to reassure me further, she gently placed the baby beside me. "But the doctors said you went through hell this time. You lost so much blood. You'll need to take good care of yourself, especially those stitches. You can't overwork yourself." In that heavy silence, Mom carefully avoided mentioning Daniel. I had just survived a near-death experience while Daniel, her son-in-law, had been missing all night. My mom was sharp and always had been. I kissed my daughter's tiny fingers, and without hesitation, I calmly told my mother, "I'm planning to divorce him." "Mom, Daniel," I began, but she interrupted me. "Olivia, you don't need to explain anything. I know everything." "My poor girl," she said, her voice heavy with sorrow as she held my hand, tears streaming down her face. "Last night, after you went into surgery, I kept calling that jerk. His phone was off, and he wasn't answering. I thought he was tied up with work," she went on, her voice shaking with anger. "It wasn't until after you were out of surgery that I saw him. He was with some other, at th. woman hospital, getting her checked in." Her voice cracked as she fought back tears. "If it weren't for the fact that you needed me, I would have marched over there and ripped both of them apart." I squeezed her hand, comforting her, feeling an unexpected sense of calm. Mom had raised me on her own, fragile on the outside but full of strength. No matter how old I got, in her eyes, I would always be her little girl who needed protection. "Olivia, just like I raised you by myself, I'll help you raise your daughter too," she said, her voice strong again. "So whatever you need to do, go ahead. You don't owe me any explanations. At that moment I realized something important. Even without Daniel, I still had my mother. Her love would always be there, solid and unwavering. My world wasn't going to fall apart because of my husband. It's just a man after all. You might also like. By evening, Daniel finally showed up. He burst into the hospital room, panic written all over his face. "Olivia, how are you feeling?" he asked, kneeling beside the bed and slapping himself hard across the face. "I'm such an idiot. I wasn't there for you when you gave birth. You can hit me, scream at me, whatever you want. There really was an emergency at work and then my phone died. It just turned off, I swear." I watched his little performance unfold with cold eyes, already fed up with the theatrics. Without waiting for him to finish, I cut him off. "Let's get a divorce, Daniel." "Divorce? Why?" "Olivia, come on, listen to me." His voice rose in desperation. "There really was an issue at the company last night. I didn't have the patience for any more of his excuses. I got straight to the point. Kara Walker, 29 years old. She lives in Maplewood Estates, 3 months pregnant. Last night, you were with her at the hospital for a checkup." I looked at him dead in the eye. "Daniel, you cheated on me. You're disgusting." His face went pale as he stared at me in shock. Panicking, he grabbed my hand. "Olivia, I was confused. It was a mistake. I never wanted this to happen. I was going to end things with her, but then she said she was pregnant. What was I supposed to do? It's a baby. Please, Olivia, you have to believe me. I've always loved you." Just then, my mom came back into the room, holding my daughter after her blood test. Daniel's eyes lit up like she was his lifeline. "Olivia, we have a child. Now, please forgive me this time for the sake of our daughter." Without missing a beat, my mom avoided his outstretched arms and carefully placed the baby beside me. She didn't say a word but walked straight to the corner, picked up a stool, and swung it at Daniel's head. He barely jumped back in time, the stool slamming into his shoulder with a loud thud. Without flinching, my mom raised the stool again. Daniel threw his hands over his head, yelping as he bolted for the door. The stool flew after him, crashing into the door with a loud bang. As the days followed, Daniel lurked outside the hospital room, sometimes peeking through the glass, trying to catch a glimpse of our daughter. After my mom hurled a thermos at him, I sent her outside with the baby for some fresh air and reluctantly allowed Daniel into the room. He looked terrible. His cheeks were sunken, and his eyes were filled with desperation. "Olivia, please forgive me for our daughter's sake. I swear I'll never hurt you again. Please believe me. Someday, when we're old, this will be nothing but a tiny bump in our long life together." By now, I was healing and able to sit up in bed. I stared at Daniel, disgusted by his self-satisfied tone, as if he still thought he had a chance. Slowly, I spoke. "Daniel, I have evidence of your affair: bank transfers, electronic statements. If you don't agree to the divorce, we'll settle this in court." His smug expression crumbled instantly. Desperately, he grabbed my hand again. "Olivia, I'm a horrible person. I cheated and I deserve whatever comes my way. But our daughter needs her father. You can't let her grow up without me. Please give me another chance. I swear I'll change." I pulled my hand away calmly, my voice firm. "There are no more chances. I find you repulsive." Before he could utter another excuse, I raised my hand to stop him. "And if I'm not mistaken, you're up for the regional manager position, right? If this divorce gets messy, what do you think the company will think of that?" The man who once took such pride in his image collapsed before me. Daniel dropped to his knees, sobbing loudly. The sound of him slapping his face echoed through the room, but I remained calm. "I've already signed the divorce papers. They're in the study room. Sign them. Mom will be back soon, and you know how she is. If you don't want another beating, I suggest you leave." In the following days, I focused on resting and recovering. After being discharged, I moved into a postpartum care center. The center was a refuge as strict visitor policies and burly security guards ensured Daniel couldn't force his way in. Finally, I found some peace. But that peace was interrupted one day when I received a package. The gift box was beautifully wrapped. When I accepted it, I assumed it was a gift from my friend for my daughter. I carefully unwrapped the packaging, untied the pink ribbon, and peeled away layer after layer of wrapping paper. But as soon as I lifted the lid, a sharp, metallic smell of blood hit me. Behind me, the nanny screamed, and then I heard my daughter's frightened cries. I kept my composure, calmly telling the nanny to take my daughter out of the room. It wasn't until I heard the door close that I let out a shaky breath, my entire body trembling. I gritted my teeth as I stared at the contents of the box. Inside was a baby rabbit. It was dead, and its once snow white fur was soaked in blood and stained an eerie red. Fighting back nausea, I grabbed my phone and called Daniel. He arrived quickly, cautiously stepping into the room. "Olivia, you've finally agreed to see me," he started. I raised the table hand to cut him off, then gestured toward the gift box on. The silence stretched out between us until he finally spoke, his voice dark and tense. Who sent this? Who else? Your little home wrecker, of course, I said coldly. Daniel, my daughter has been in this world for only 16 days, and she's already received this kind of vicious threat. You're her father. You don't have to love her, but you'd better not bring disaster into her life. My voice was firm as I added, I expect the signed divorce papers by this afternoon. If not, I'll be in court tomorrow filing a lawsuit. I looked at the man I had once loved, the man I thought I would grow old with. In the end, he betrayed me in the worst possible way. The marriage I once cherished was now nothing but ruins. But I had to give credit to Kara. Unintentionally, she had given me all the leverage I needed to push Daniel further away. The days that followed were finally peaceful. I followed Mom's advice and focused on resting and recovering. On sunny days, I would sit on the balcony with my daughter, letting the warmth of the sun wash over us. Then, one afternoon, a thought came to me as the sunlight streamed in. I decided to name my daughter Sunny, short for sunshine, symbolizing light. Sunshine Brooks. I wanted my daughter to be like the first ray of sunlight, warm, steady, and full of courage to begin again. My eyes lit up as I shared the name with Mom. Sunny, Sunny, what a beautiful name, she said, beaming as she cradled her granddaughter. Oh, my little sunshine, be like the sun and always stay by your mother's side. I noticed my mom discreetly wiping away a tear as she turned her head. She had always worried about me, knowing I had endured far more than I should have. Trying to comfort her, I spoke softly, Mom, I feel so much better now. When I first found out about Daniel's affair, it was like my whole world collapsed. I could barely breathe, and the pain in my chest was constant. I spent countless nights lying awake, wondering what I did wrong. I kept thinking I must have been the one who failed. But then, I realized it wasn't me. Some people are just selfish. They'll never be content with what they have, no matter how good their life is. I continued, I used to believe Daniel was honest and loved me, but that was only because he never had the chance to cheat. Once he became successful, it was inevitable. At least I found out now, while Sunny is still too young to understand, rather than later. Feeling lighter, I stood up and opened my arms, wrapping both my mom and my daughter in a warm hug. Now that I have you both with me, I sighed, every day feels joyful. The next day, I received Daniel's signed divorce papers. The property division had been amended and he gave me all the real estate. Without hesitation, I signed my name. I didn't stop Daniel from seeing our daughter, so he visited almost every day to hold her for a while. Toys kept arriving at our home, one after another. Then, on the day of Sunny's first month party, Daniel showed up excitedly, bringing a gold locket as a gift. He cradled our daughter, kissing her repeatedly, even shedding a few tears. My mom, thrilled, leaned over and whispered, Olivia, maybe you should give him more time. If he is truly sorry, you might want to forgive him for Sunny's sake. I lowered my head and smirked. People don't change that quickly, do they? As expected, Daniel's phone rang after only a few minutes. I glanced at the screen and saw the name my Karina flashing. I couldn't help but sneer. Daniel looked at me, clearly embarrassed. Go ahead, answer it, I said. It might be important. The moment he picked up, Kara's panicked voice came through loud and clear. Danny, where are you? I suddenly have stomach pains. I'm bleeding. Are we going to lose the baby? Daniel jumped into action, trying to calm her down. Don't worry, Kara. Just sit tight. I'll be there soon. Without even saying goodbye to our daughter, he rushed out the door in a panic. My mom started cursing him under her breath, but I felt nothing. I was calm, almost eerily so. I was waiting for the right moment and for the perfect time to strike back. That moment came sooner than expected. A week later, I got a call from Kara, her voice dripping with arrogance. Olivia, Daniel, and I are getting married. I guess I should thank you hadn't pushed for the divorce, we wouldn't be tying the knot so soon. So consider this your official invitation to our wedding on Friday. You should come, have a drink, and celebrate with us. Thanks for making it all possible. I didn't get angry. Instead, I replied slowly, Kara, how's your baby? Planning to carry it to term, or are you going for a timely miscarriage after the wedding? There was stunned silence on the other end before she lashed out, Olivia, what the hell are you talking about? I said nothing and hung up, smiling to myself. Kara was never really pregnant. When I saw her at the cafe months ago, I noticed she had bought sanitary pads, not something you'd expect from a pregnant woman. Plus, what kind of woman in her first trimester wears high heels and crosses her legs so casually? The whole thing didn't add up. Once I had recovered, I reached out to my lawyer, sharing my suspicions. It didn't take long for her to confirm what I had already figured out. Kara couldn't be pregnant. It was all just a desperate scheme to lock Daniel down. I packed up, took my mom and Sunny, and went back to my hometown. I turned off my phone, making sure Kara wouldn't be able to find me. I wanted her to feel like there was a sword hanging over her head, every day filled with fear and uncertainty. On the day of their wedding, I sent Daniel copies of Kara's fake ultrasound report and a recording of her bribing an intern doctor. The documents arrived just in time, right before the ceremony at the town's most prestigious hotel. In front of all their guests, Daniel slapped Kara in the face. He ripped open her wedding dress and, in front of everyone, pulled out a wad of cotton she had stuffed under her gown to fake a baby bump. The room erupted with gasps. Kara, trying to cover herself, trembled as Daniel glared at her, seething with anger. "Baby, let me explain," she stammered. "I only lied because I love you so much. I couldn't stand the thought of losing you. Please forgive me, Danny." Her shaking hand reached for his, but Daniel smacked it away. Through clenched teeth, he growled, "Forgive you? You destroyed my..." With that, he kicked her hard in the stomach. Kara screamed, doubling over in pain as Daniel kicked her again and again, cursing her with every blow. "You ruined everything." Horrified, the guest rushed to pull Daniel away. By then, Kara was barely conscious, blood soaking through her white wedding dress. What was supposed to be a wedding had turned into a nightmare. An ambulance arrived to take Kara away, and police escorted Daniel out in handcuffs. Guests who had recorded the entire scene uploaded the videos online, and within hours, they went viral. Hashtags like #homewrecker gets what she deserves and #karma catches up to cheaters were trending. I watched the videos and let out a long, satisfied breath. I leaned down and kissed my daughter's soft cheeks. I've never been one to be easily bullied. When Sunny was learning to walk, Daniel was released from prison. He had beaten Kara so badly that her uterus was damaged, leaving her unable to become a mother. Kara's family sued Daniel, and he was imprisoned for it. While he was in prison, Daniel sent messages through others asking to meet me. I refused. There was no need. We had shared a part of life's journey, but in the end, we were meant to walk a different path. Continuing any kind of entanglement would have been pointless. But I didn't expect the first thing he would do after his release was to looking for us. Come. I watched him from behind the garden foliage. He was much thinner and looked older, the weight of prison showing in the lines on his face. His eyes, filled with tears, were locked on Sunny. My daughter, sensing something was wrong, hid behind me. "Mommy, who is that?" she whispered, looking up at me. I hadn't planned on keeping the truth from her. I was about to tell her it was her father when Daniel interrupted, his voice soft and awkward. He smiled nervously, rubbing his hands together. "Little Sunny, I'm your mom's old college friend. You can call me Uncle Danny." At that moment, I realized the once arrogant Daniel was gone. He had learned fear. He was afraid that this little girl might find out she had a father who'd been in prison. Slowly, he crouched down and asked cautiously, "Sunny, can Uncle give you a hug?" My daughter looked up at me for reassurance. I nodded, encouraging her. Sunny stepped forward hesitantly, and Daniel immediately scooped her up into his arms. He buried his face on her tiny shoulder and started sobbing. Scared, Sunny began to cry and wriggle, trying to break free. I quickly took her back from him and asked my mom to take her inside for a while. Once they left, Daniel wiped his face, his expression filled with shame. "It might not mean much now, but I still need to say it. I'm sorry, Olivia," he said, his voice shaky. "I'm the one who ruined what could be been a happy family." He rubbed his hands over his face, his eyes red and puffy. "I deserve everything that's happened to me. Just don't ever tell Sunny she has a father like me. I don't deserve that title." With that, he turned and walked away. Though he was only in his 30s, his hunched back made him look much older. I stood there, watching him disappear, feeling neither sadness nor relief. Everyone had to face the consequences of their choices, and Daniel was no different. "Mommy." Sunny's voice broke through my thoughts, pulling me back to the present. I turned and ran toward my little girl, my world now revolving around her. "You might also like. Men was killed by gangsters. Disappeared. When I was killed by gangsters, he disappeared. Say goodbye to my beloved husband."